When reading Module 29, the things to keep in mind are the assumptions that Pavlov and Watson made around classical and operant conditioning. So on this slide, you're going to see all of the assumptions that they made about how both classical conditioning and operant conditioning worked. For the most part, we're going to focus on classical conditioning first and the challenges that were that people like Rescorla and then Garcia and Kolding, their research both challenged all of these assumptions and changed the way we look at conditioning. So one of the big things is when you're reading this, I want you to think Rescorla when you see cognition, okay? And then when you see timing in any perceivable stimulus, I want you to think of Garcia and Kolding. All right. There's also challenges to operant conditioning that the book goes into in minor detail. And one of the concepts connected to operant conditioning is the concept called instinctual drift. In instinctual drift, even after an animal has been operantly conditioned, sometimes their instinctual habits will return regardless of reinforcement or reward. So they say basically the organism is drifting back to the way it once behaved. So there's a page about this in Myers, so just make sure you're familiar with that term. Okay, so now we're going to look at the biological challenges to Pavlov's concept of classical conditioning. You should be writing Garcia and Kolding next to all of this and the concept of taste aversion. Also make sure you understand the concept called biological preparedness. Basically, this challenges the notion that any stimulus, any neutral stimulus can become a conditioned stimulus. Now, biological preparedness doesn't say that neutral stimuluses can never become a conditioned stimulus. It just says that certain stimuli are more easily associated with other stimuli, and that learning can be either quickened or slowed or diminished depending upon the associations in question. So here's another slide on Garcia and Kolding. So again, make sure you're familiarizing yourself with the concept of taste aversion and the idea that this basically challenges the notion that there needs to be consistent pairings of the neutral stimulus and the unconditioned stimulus for conditioning or learning to happen. The other thing is it challenges the timing, because the sweet water and the radiation were separated in time by an amount of time over 15 seconds, upwards of 8 hours, in which Pavlov would have predicted that learning could not happen, and learning still did happen. It happened because Garcia and Kolding infer that we are biologically prepared as mammals to associate nausea with food or with drink. So make sure you understand these basic concepts. In another podcast, we're going to talk about the cognitive challenges to classical conditioning, and that's Rescorla.